Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to warmly welcome you to today's Civil Society Forum. My name is Cecilia Schurmeister, and I serve as a representative for the Baha'i International Community. And I will be serving as moderator today, along with my co-moderator, Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. I am Sara bin Farhat, and I'm here as a youth delegate for NGOC Sakti. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum sayyidati wa sadati. نرحب بكم جميعا ونشكر دولة قطر على استضافة هذا المؤتمر.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, thank you so much for joining us today. We are gathered here in this beautiful venue, thank you to our generous hosts, to honor the anniversary of the World Social Summit, which took place in Copenhagen in 1995, and to come together and reflect on where we are, where we want to be, and how concretely to get there. Looking at the world today, humanity is facing increasingly complex challenges that are not restricted to political, geographic, or ideological borders. Inequality is on the rise and affects dimensions of the whole lifespan. We know that these inequalities are, in fact, symptoms of a deeper illness at the root of these challenges that has to do with the way we conceive of development and the way we relate to each other. At the same time, humanity is increasingly recognizing its inherent interdependence. The same way the human body cannot be said to be healthy if any one of its organs is unwell, likewise, the human family cannot reach true prosperity for all if any one segment of the population is suffering. The well-being of the whole relies on, and in fact calls for, the well-being of all its parts. How then do we proceed? We need to objectively assess our conceptions of development and their underlying principles, and inquire whether the development models we rely upon actually encourage collective prosperity. We need to understand and address the root causes of inequalities and to reimagine systems that encourage change for the collective. Civil society has a significant role to play alongside member states and the United Nations in driving and amplifying good practices from the grassroots, in localizing the political declaration in every context, and in informing, shaping, and co-creating models of change that respond to the lived needs. This is the work we have now, the work of ensuring that these words are translated into deeds through implementation. Therefore, we invite you to actively contribute to this civil society forum in making it a constructive space to reflect on these fundamental questions and pair them with action-oriented models, and to see the summit as a launching pad for renewed momentum. It is in the spirit of collective endeavor, of a shared vision, and of unity in diversity that we begin this forum, reflecting the year's operating theme of the General Assembly, Better Together. And with that, we will move on to our distinguished speakers who have been asked to impart their wisdom and experience in an unfairly short amount of time, 5 minutes. Sarah and I will shortly take our seats, and we will invite each speaker to the lectern and then to return their seats, after which we will take a photo together at the end. It is now my privilege to invite Her Excellency, the President of the 80th session of the General Assembly, Ms. Annalena Baerbock, to the lectern. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Madam Deputy Secretary General, President of ECOSOC, Excellencies, Minister, but most of all, representatives of the civil society, Roberto Bisio and Ms. Gillian Sousa Nasret. In Morocco, local women's cooperatives are working hand in hand with the government and UNDP to harvest, produce, and sell orchid oil, a surging commodity that has transformed communities and created lasting livelihoods. In Cameroon, an academic institution from India has partnered with the government and the UN to train rural women to install and operate solar panels. They now proudly call them solar mamas. Across every region in every country, there are thousands of such transformational initiatives spanning women's economic empowerment, green energy, inclusive digitalization, and so much more. The common thread? They are locally driven and community-led. There are so many, in fact, that even keeping track is a challenge. Thankfully, innovation is also rising to meet this need. On Monday, here in the same theater at the Solution Forum in Durham, one project stood out, the Global Action Mosaic, led by Humanitarian Tracker, a network of volunteers and grassroots organizations. This initiative is using crowdsourcing and artificial intelligence to map and amplify SDG breakthroughs worldwide, especially those led by civil society. Their aim is bold. Within 5 years, to connect more than 1 million citizen-led initiatives across at least 75 countries, building shared data, shared learning, and shared visibility. A true mosaic of local action, from youth empowerment to gender equality, powered by people, grounded in communities, and driven by data. And living up to the theme of the 80th session, that we are indeed better together. If we learn from each other, if we work with each other. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it is therefore an honor to join you in opening the Civil Society Forum at this second World Social Summit. As the examples illustrate, when we work together, when we trust communities and invest in their ingenuity, extraordinary things happen. And across the world, the record tells that story. In the 3 decades since Copenhagen, extreme poverty has fallen from 2 billion people to about 800 million. Access to education, healthcare, and social protection has expanded. Life expectancy has reached approximately 73 years, and global unemployment at around 5% is at historic lows. These are not small victories. They are proof, tangible and profound, that collective action works. Behind each number are lives changed, families lifted, girls empowered, futures widened. And at the heart of so many efforts stand civil society organizations. Volunteers, advocates, organizers, and experts, often operating on shoestrings budget, far from the spotlight, yet shaping progress every day. Yet, as I said at my opening, we have to be honest to ourselves. 1% unemployment is totally hiding that there's a big, big debate between 1%, for example, here in Qatar, and 30% in other countries. We see the divides everywhere. And those of you who have been at the opening, I was using this example of a race, that people around the world can all prove that they can do the same. But if you ask some to step a step backwards because they are born just in a family where they have to care every day of what to eat, you do not have the same chances. So facing the inequality is a dear and true question we have to tackle today. And we as international actors, as the UN, as politicians, as governments, we should know that this is not the task by the civil society alone. This is a task of responsible leadership. This is a task of all of us to ensure that in the future, truly no one is being left behind. I thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, for reminding us of the collective purpose in shaping our shared future. Your leadership of the General Assembly exemplifies the spirit of multilateral progress. It is now my honor to introduce another distinguished leader who embodies the same spirit of global cooperation, Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, friends, it's a real honor to join you to speak at the opening of the Civil Society Forum. I'd like to thank member states and all our organizations for joining us here to drive this conversation forward. Let me begin with a simple truth. 30 years ago in Copenhagen, world leaders made ambitious commitments to a social development that must be people-centered and people-powered. 3 decades later, civil society has delivered. As we look back to that moment, we see how far the global social vision has come, from the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, to the Pact for the Future, and now to the Doha Political Declaration. Here's what we know. Civil society was tireless in keeping those commitments moving forward and turning them into the 2030 Agenda, making sure social justice and inclusion weren't just words on paper. So when we talk about implementing the declaration, when we talk about the last mile of delivery on social justice, let me be very clear, you are our co-pilots in driving that work forward at the country level. The hundreds of you gathered here today from every region, every sector, representing non-governmental organizations, community-based groups, women's rights organizations, our youth-led movements, organizations of people with disabilities, our Teachers Association, workers' unions, faith-based groups, and grassroots activists. You are proof that social development matters and always will because you make it real in communities and in people's lives every day. You've carried this agenda forward for 30 years, and the United Nations is matching your leadership with action. We are practicing inclusion and representation every single day. Civil society is co-designing national SDG roadmaps through the resident coordinator system, shaping food systems and the pathways in more than 100 countries, and helping to guide the Global Digital Compact. Women's rights groups are steering the Spotlight Initiative. Youth networks are shaping the Summit of the Future follow-up. When we tackle financing and debt, when we work on trade and market access, when we push for technology that serves everyone, when we fight for equality education and universal health coverage, when we address poverty and food security, your voices must be amplified in parliaments and in policy discussions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are here in Doha because the SDGs are at risk and they need accelerated action and solutions. Some of you in this room are already doing exactly that. Teachers transforming education in the most marginalized communities, activists holding governments accountable on climate action, networks like She Trades breaking down barriers for women entrepreneurs. And let's be clear, women and youth in civil society are leaders in this work, their energy, their vision. The majority of grassroots organizations, the backbone of social movements, the persistent voice demanding equality and justice, that's women and young people driving that change. When we talk about transforming systems, we need to ensure everyone has the power at every level, shaping decisions and leading implementation. You know what works on the ground, and you know what's needed. And we know that when international system listens to you, we get better policies, better implementation, and better results. Your role is also important in post-conflict settings. Silencing the guns is essential, but peace is not merely the absence of war. It is the slow, deliberate work of mending what violence has torn apart, the trust between people, the social fabric that binds communities, and the sense of shared destiny that allows societies to heal. In Gaza, we see how the war unravels that fabric thread by thread, leaving lives and generations frayed. But we also see endurance and the will to stitch life back together. Think of Tatris, the Palestinian art of embroidery, Each stitch tells a story of strength and survival. Each thread connects generations of women who, through patient and precise hands, transform loss into beauty. Pull one thread and the pattern weakens. Nurture it and the design endures. Rebuilding peace is much the same. It demands patience, precision, and collective care, the quiet resilience of those who choose to mend rather than despair, to stitch back where the fabric of life has been torn. You're the ones on the ground doing this work, holding communities together, creating conditions for people to rebuild their lives with dignity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, keep pushing, keep demanding, keep holding us accountable. The UN strives to walk the talk on representation and inclusion every day, and we need to make sure that we do better. The promise of Copenhagen, the vision of the 2030 Agenda, and the commitments in the Pact for the Future, with the Doha Declaration, all need your voice and leadership to bring them to life. We are proud to stand with you every step of the way. I thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary General. We understand that you have to leave us, but we want to profoundly thank you for your presence and your participation today, and for your continuous support of civil society's engagement. It is now my honor to pass the floor to the President of the ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council of the UN, His Excellency Mr. Lok Bahadur Thapa. You may take the lectern.
President of the General Assembly, ministers, excellencies, colleagues, distinguished partners, dear friends in civil society, it is a great honor to join you in this opening of the Civil Society Forum convened here in Doha alongside the Second World Summit for Social Development. This year, both the United Nations and its Economic and Social Council celebrate their 80th anniversaries. For 8 decades, ECOSOC has been at the heart of the UN's work for the people and the planet, translating shared values into practical action and fostering cooperations across nations and stakeholders. As a bridge between governments, the UN system, and civil society, it continues to advance the founding promise of our organizations, captured in the enduring words, "We the peoples." Today, as we revisit the commitments made in Copenhagen in 1995, we are reminded that the social development is not one goal among many, but it is the foundations of sustainable progress. 8. Poverty, exclusions, and inequality process. The challenge before us is to rekindle collective purpose and make social justice the true measures of global success. To this, the Doha Declaration stands as a rallying call, reviving optimisms, reinforcing multilateral commitment, and charting a bold course towards inclusive development. Dear colleagues, as President of the Economic and Social Council, my vision is embodied in the motto of delivering better. This means ensuring that multilateral cooperation leads to tangible improvements in people's lives, bridging global decisions with local realities and empowering those left furthest behind. To advance social development, I have prioritized 4 interconnected areas. First, strengthening food security and rural resilience so that agri-food systems becomes engines of equity and sustainability. Second, promoting digital inclusion and youth entrepreneurships, turning connectivity into opportunity for all. Third, advancing climate resilience, shifting from reaction to preparedness, and ensuring adaptations finance reaches those most at risk. Fourth, mobilizing financing for development so that global capital delivers people, not just for markets. Across all these areas, ECOSOC gives special attention to countries in special situations, especially in Africa, the least developed and landlocked developing countries, small island nations whose vulnerabilities demand tailored solutions rooted in social equity and solidarity. Dear colleagues, civil society actors are indispensable to these missions. You connect policy to people, principles to practice, and ideals to impact. Your work gives meaning to multilateralism as advocates, as innovators, and as partners in delivery. As ECOSOC marks its 80th years in 23rd of January next year, let us renew our commitment to people-centered multilateralism, to one that measures success in words or numbers, but in lives improved and dignity restored. Together, let us deliver better, strengthen social development, and make social justice the heart of our shared future. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your steadfast leadership and for recognizing that true progress begins with people and partnerships. Your commitment to strengthening partnerships continues to inspire collective action and ensures that no one is left behind. It is now my honor to introduce our next distinguished speaker, Her Excellency Ms. Buthaina bint Ali Al-Jaber Al-Nuwami, Minister of Social Development and Family of the State of Qatar. Her Excellency advocates for social inclusion and community well-being, championing policies that place people at the center of development. Through her leadership, she continues to demonstrate a deep commitment to equity and social cohesion. Excellency, I invite you to take the lectern.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and friends from civil society, good morning and welcome. This forum begins from a simple and essential truth. There can be no lasting social development without civil society. Civil society helps shape and implement policies and gives voice to those who are often unheard. Importantly, it ensures that commitments are measured by their impact on the ground. The State of Qatar is deeply committed to this partnership. When we hosted the 5th United Nations Conference on the least developed countries here in Doha in 2023, we made sure that civil society was not on the margins, but at the table, through a fully integrated civil society forum that informed the outcomes and strengthened global solidarity. That experience reaffirmed the lesson: development is most effective, most trusted, and most sustainable when communities are engaged directly in shaping it. We are bringing the same spirit to the summit. In preparation for this week, we collaborated with civil society networks to listen, learn, and co-design the perspectives reflected here today. The dialogues and briefings organized by the NGO Committee in New York, including those with the permanent mission of the State of Qatar to the UN, ensure that diverse voices are included in our shared agenda. We are truly grateful for this collaboration. Here in the State of Qatar, we work in partnership with the civil society groups. The Ministry of Social Development and Family is expanding opportunities for volunteerism and community-based action, ensuring that community groups, including families and public institutions, reinforce one another. As an example, our national strategy launched in 2025 under the theme From Care to Empowerment was developed through a broad consultative process with civil society, experts, families, and community organizations. Their insights shaped its priorities and will ensure its success. Globally, the State of Qatar supports a program that align with the Sustainable Development Goals and encourage meaningful civic participation, especially for women and youth. Together with partners, we work to strengthen social protection system, widen access to education and health, and promote initiatives in which communities help design and monitor the services they receive. When people participate in shaping solutions, those solutions last. Allow me to turn to the way forward. At the heart of the summit is the Doha Political Declaration, a renewed global commitment to create the economic, social, legal, and cultural foundation for social development that truly includes all. The declaration must not remain words on paper, it must guide action. Civil society will be essential in that follow-up. Your leadership will be key in monitoring progress, identifying where improvement is needed, ensuring that those most at risk are not left behind, and upholding accountability, both nationally and internationally. And with the United Nations Commission for Social Development serving as the primary follow-up mechanism, I encourage civil society organizations to continue their active engagement, including through the ECOSOC consultative status and ongoing participation in CSOC processes. Let me conclude by reaffirming Qatar's unwavering commitment to working hand in hand with civil society, here at home, across our region, and around the world. Our shared goal is clear: to ensure that this summit leads to real, measurable human impact that requires partnership, transparency, trust, and participation. And it begins here in this forum. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to take this opportunity to again thank the state of Qatar for the hospitality and your generosity in supporting us and in hosting this forum, and to thank you, Minister, for raising the call of social development in this country. It's now my honor to turn to the co-facilitators of the Doha Political Declaration. Having served as the chair of the subcommittee on this summit, I can tell you that we were very closely following and appreciating the tireless efforts that you and your missions put throughout the year to bring us the Doha Political Declaration. This declaration stands as a symbol of consensus that we can take tangibly with us through Agenda 2030 and afterwards. So it is my honor to invite to the lectern Ambassador of Belgium and co-facilitator, Her Excellency, Ms. De Smet. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, and members of civil society, it is a tremendous pleasure and honor to stand here today. 30 years after Copenhagen, where thousands of delegates and members of civil society gathered, we now are here together in Doha, and thousands of delegates and members of civil society have come to turn this summit into a meaningful, action and solution-packed multi-stakeholder gathering. And I'm very proud to be among you, to participate in as many events as possible, and to share my experience as co-facilitator, but more importantly, to listen and to learn. Together with my fellow co-facilitator, friend, and social development co-bridge builder, Ambassador Hilal, it bids us great pleasure to be here today after a journey of almost 2 years of Moroccan-Belgian facilitation. This forum holds specific significance for us. Civil society's role in keeping social development on the agenda these past 3 decades was crucial. You keep us all straight. You keep us accountable. You also inspired us. You gave us ideas. You brought points to our attention, and you also brought solutions, expertise, and enthusiasm. I am proud to say that even if the negotiations of the political declaration were intergovernmental, civil society's role was more than crucial. So I am grateful for today's opportunity to personally thank you for your motivation, your advocacy, your expertise, and your support. You made this journey with us, and you showed incredible ambition for this text. The Doha Political Declaration is about putting people first. We kept this text as concise and readable as possible. This helps countries, civil society, UN agencies to continue our work and to translate it into action. Our text is about advancing global social development and social justice. Just like in Copenhagen, Doha reaffirms the Copenhagen Declaration and the Program of Action. And it also takes into account new challenges, opportunities, and realities of this world in 2025. Is our text perfection? Does it take into account every member state's aspiration, every member of civil society's aspirations? No, it is not. But our text shows ambition. It is a very strong consensus. Strong multilateralism is not perfect. Strong multilateralism is the voice of compromise. The voice that says that what we do together is stronger than what we do in division or what we each do separately. Today, we can be proud that the world can still come together and be ambitious together. The role of civil society in achieving this is crucial. So please, keep doing what you're doing. Copenhagen and Doha paved the road. We know the what and the why, but we still need to think carefully about the how. We have 6 years until 2031. This summit is not the end of the road, though it is a moment to be thankful for. This summit is one of the milestones to get to where we want to be and to work towards achieving all the goals we have put on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, we all have more work to do. We have to tackle social development together, and we are proud to show again that we are better together. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador de Smet, for your leadership in co-facilitating, together with the State of Morocco, the political declaration of the Second World Summit for Social Development. We commend your dedication to advancing social justice. This political declaration truly marks an important step forward in adapting social policy to today's realities. It is now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Roberto Bisio, a Uruguayan journalist and coordinator of the International Secretariat of Social Watch. Mr. Bisio participated in the World Social Summit in 1995 and brings decades of experience in civil society, demonstrating how sustained advocacy can meaningfully translate commitments into action. Mr. Bisio, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, friends and colleagues, let me start on a personal note and some backstage information. 32 years ago, I was in Oaxaca in an NGO strategy meeting on how we were going to fight against structural adjustment. At the same time, there was in town a big UN meeting on poverty. Ambassador Juan Somavia had just been appointed to chair the preparatory process of the Social Summit, and he came to our little hotel to convince civil society that the Social Summit was a channel for our concerns and could widen it. And we heard that invitation, we appreciated. There was a lot of debate, I can tell you. As always in civil society, not everybody agreed. But we went massively to Copenhagen. After working 2 years in the preparatory process, there was 12,000 people in a naval base. What a place for a civil society gathering, in a parallel forum. And there were 2,300 NGO representatives in the official summit. 811 NGOs at that moment. We structured loosely around caucuses. There was the Women Caucus, brilliantly led by Bella Abzug. I had the honor of co-chairing the Development Caucus. The world was different then. We were hopeful that the end of the Cold War would bring a peace dividend that would make poverty eradication possible. We were hopeful that having computers talk to each other, which was a novelty then, would open a new era of free information flows and improved accountability. We wanted of the summit an international tax on financial transactions that could fund universal social protection. We wanted an end to structural adjustment, and we got a commitment, one of the 10 commitments on that issue. Structural adjustment became such a bad word that the World Bank decided to change the name, and now it is called austerity. We did not get all that we wanted. But on the last day of the summit, we decided that the solemn commitments to end poverty and achieve gender equality deserved being followed. Social Watch was created on that day to report every year, we thought 1 year later, on how our governments and the international system had implemented their promises. Year after year, Social Watch brought hundreds of reports from independent coalitions in 85 countries to the attention of the UN. The process of researching and drafting those reports helped people's organizations to network and to understand the links, opportunities, and constraints between the local and the global. The trade and investment regime had just been enshrined then with the creation of the WTO 1 year before the Social Summit. There was a lot of doubts and concern about this globalization that was starting, so much that the summit included in its resolution a warning that states should intervene when markets fail. The world is not the same now. There was no peace dividend, and there is no peace now. By exempting digital platforms from the responsibilities that everybody printing a paper with ink and paper, an accountable oligarchy of billionaires was not just allowed, but even encouraged to flourish. Nowadays, hate propagates unrestricted, and the flood of misinformation risks making all of us insensitives while genocides are broadcasted in real time and the Security Council fails to act. Climate change creates havoc. The COVID pandemic evidenced through vaccine apartheid the failure of the current system where intellectual property becomes a commodity in the market and does not deliver for the common good. During the pandemic, women were once again the main care providers who saved lives and societies, very often without pay, without recognition, and risking growing levels of poverty and personal indebtedness. Now in Doha, the governments are renewing the pledges of 3 decades ago and adding new commitments that we welcome to reduce inequalities, to promote care and support. And that care and support is already recognized as a right by many countries, and Doha promises to ensure universal social protection, which is a human right enshrined in the Universal Declaration. We are not being told, though, what they will do differently to achieve a different result. As civil society, we will take these promises seriously, name and shame when necessary, and promote the political will for social development that Doha is reintroducing in the UN agenda. This we will be discussing in the 10 events during the next 2 days. The notions of social development and social integration are at the heart of the Social Summit, but they are not a new concept. 700 years ago, the Arab philosopher, historian, and founder of modern sociology, Ibn Khaldun, called that concept asabiyya, which is usually translated as group solidarity or social cohesion. To achieve asabiyya, he wrote in the Muqaddimah in 1377 that the requirements are, and I quote, submitting to the truth, seeking justice for the oppressed, humbling oneself to the poor, listening to the complaints of those in need, adhering to laws and worship, upholding and understanding them and their reasons. And further, he wrote, we should abstain from betrayal, deceit, and treachery, and breaking covenants. We have learned, Ibn Khaldun said, that these are the qualities of good policies. End of the quote. Let's spread that lesson so that Doha can actually revive hope. And those of you that have a home near the UN headquarters know today very well how much hope can even beat the power of money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bisio. Your presence here today stands as a symbol of the commitment of civil society for the past 3 decades, many before, and for many to come. And now it is my pleasure and honor to turn again to the co-facilitators, to the Ambassador of Morocco joining us, His Excellency Omar Hilal. We'd like to thank you again for forging this consensus, for stewarding the release of the declaration in September, or for the new elements that this declaration highlights, including follow-up in the CSOC-D and after. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, friends of the civil society, gathering here in Doha with the civil society 32 years after Copenhagen holds a very special significance. It represents a culmination of a vision set for the very outset of this process, which to convene a summit that speaks to realities on the ground, a summit that goes beyond agreed conclusions, and a summit that lies the foundation for a new era of inclusion of non-governmental actors. Today we are witnessing the result of this collective effort, summit that was designed from its inception to be inclusive, transparent, and genuinely participatory. Since the start of the discussion, we have been clear together with my co-facilitator and friends, Ambassador De Smet. Civil society is an integral partner at every step of achieving social development, not as observer, but as co-architects of our shared vision for renewed social development. From our first consultations on the modalities to the multi-stakeholders hearings and exchange organized through the ECOSOC major groups mechanism, our engagement with you via the Regional Economic Commissions Forum, as well as bridging the voice of New York with the tripartite actors based in Geneva. Your voices have informed and enriched every stage of the preparatory process. You have helped ensure that the road to Doha has remained firmly anchored in the realities, aspirations, and challenges of people and communities on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, 32 years after Copenhagen, the challenges we face today are profoundly different. The world is more interconnected, yet more fragmented, richer in innovation, yet marked by deep inequalities within and among countries. New technologies and AI bridging huge opportunities, yet exposing further inequalities of access and ethics of AI use. We are witnessing widening digital divide, growing pressures on social cohesion, growing conflicts and threats to peace and security. Climate change continues to exacerbate vulnerabilities, and poverty in all its forms and dimensions continue to persist. The principles of Copenhagen anchored in human dignity, social justice, social inclusion, human rights, equity, and solidarity remain as relevant as ever. But they demand renewal, political will, and collective commitments. And this is what we put at the core of the Doha Political Declaration. 32 years after Copenhagen, the Doha Political Declaration is not just political declaration or document. It's a wake-up call to action for social development and political commitment to give momentum to the 2030 agenda. Your role as civil society is unique and irreplaceable, and advancing the values of Copenhagen and pioneering local solutions for the Doha Call of Action for Social Development. Through your advocacy, you hold institutions accountable and ensure that progress is not only measured in numbers and statistics, but in human dignity and in inclusion. Looking ahead, we must seize the opportunity of this summit as starting point of implementation of Doha Political Declaration into bold commitments. The follow-up to the summit must also be participatory and inclusive, ensuring that civil society remains an active partner in implementation and accountability. Let us seize this historic moment, 32 years after Copenhagen, to reaffirm that social development and the social dimension of sustainable development are put at the forefront of our priorities. To conclude, I wish again to express my deep appreciation for your engagement, your perseverance, and your political and intellectual courage, and your commitment to advancing social development and the global social justice. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Hilal, for your continued engagement with civil society through your co-facilitation, together with Belgium, of this political declaration. We commend your steadfast commitment to the 3 pillars of social development as outlined in both the Copenhagen Declaration and this summit's outcome document. Guided by the principles of people-centered, rights-based development, the NGO Committee for Social Development is truly honored to have organized this civil society forum, ensuring inclusive participation and meaningful engagement. It is now my pleasure to welcome Chair of NGO CSOC-D from the Red Dot Foundation, Ms. Jillian D'Souza Nazareth, the brains behind the forum, who has guided this committee with dedication and vision. Chair, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, civil society, and our hosts of the state of Qatar. We made it. We've crossed oceans, time zones, and survived endless email threads, and somehow we're all here. So I ask you again, please give yourself a round of applause. I stand before you today in a space born out of courage, conviction, and belief that we the peoples must always come first. Yesterday, we bore witness to the adoption of the political declaration. 30 years after Copenhagen, we gather again to remind the world that social development is the heartbeat of peace, the unfinished business of our time. We welcome what is good in the declaration, its reaffirmation that poverty eradication, decent work, and social inclusion remain the 3 pillars of development, that social justice and human rights are inseparable from peace. The political declaration cites and supports 16 globally agreed frameworks, from our core mandate of the Copenhagen Declaration and Program of Action to the Sustainable Development Framework of Agenda 2030. This political declaration takes great care to acknowledge the global financing commitments, including climate justice and human rights anchors as you can see on the screen behind me. We welcome the declaration's mention of 4 action agendas for current countries in special situations, all while centering the document around the foundational commitments of the UN Charter, that of peace, equality, and cooperation. We also note what the declaration does not do. It does not go far enough in naming the crisis of inequality between rich and poor, between men and women, between those connected and those left offline. It does not yet provide a clear pathway for accountability. We miss the mechanisms that will tell the world if this declaration is reality or rhetoric. And while the declaration recognizes the value of multi-stakeholder engagement, we urge that this commitment be backed by protection and respect of civic space. We, the peoples, come to this summit with joy because we know that change is possible, and with focus because we know that there's work to be done. Dear Declaration, steadfast and clear, through every age we hold you dear. For work, for voice, for human choice, we rise as one, we lift our voice. Civil society fierce and bright, you bring the struggle, you bring the light. For peace, for justice, hand in hand. For accountability, we take our stand. And so let's memorialize this moment, proof that we stood and sat here in Doha together as one, united in purpose, united in hope. And we're going to try something a little different now. So we ask if you can turn up the lights, and we're ready to take a group selfie of us and y'all. So if I may request the panelists to please stand. No? Oh, sorry. Security says it's not possible. I'm sorry. We just need one photographer up.
So you just need a photo, and we stand here, and then we do it very quickly, and then we move on.
Okay. So, come. Yay! Let's give it up. Thank you so much, Madam President.